Here is my recap of Dexter Season 5, Episode 9. This episode is entitled Teenage Wasteland. And believe it or not, the big story in this episode is not the Jordan Chase storyline. This is actually more about Dexter and his family life. And we find out a lot about Dexter and himself and the kind of growth that he goes through in this particular episode. So I'm going to get the Jordan Chase storyline out of the way first. This episode starts with Dexter having a session with Jordan. He's trying to get close to Jordan and notices that Jordan has a vial of blood on a necklace that he wears around his neck all the time. And so Dexter is trying to isolate this necklace so he can get a blood sample. So he's having these sessions with Jordan, making Jordan believe that Jordan is helping him, but he's really there for the blood. He does eventually get the blood, and Jordan realizes this right away. So Jordan is on to Dexter. And the very final scene of this episode is Jordan Chase calling Dexter's home, talking to Lumen and say, "Can you give Dexter a message?" And he said, "Tick, tick, tick, your life is wasting away," basically. And this terrifies Lumen. And that's when Jordan Chase says, "Thank you, Lumen." So he knows that everything he knows about Lumen, he knows about Dexter, and now they know that Jordan Chase knows. So Jordan Chase, there's definitely more going on. Now, Dexter does get that blood sample, and he gives it to Masuka. And come to find out, there's a girl there living in Miami that is still alive that blood belongs to. So I have a feeling in this next episode, Dexter's going to go visit this individual. But let's talk about the bigger storyline in this. Well, there's one other short storyline I'm going to talk about before I talk about the big one. You've got the whole thing with LaGuerta, Batista, and you've got the thing going on with Deborah, and they're all, and this also has to do with Quinn. There's a lot going on with them, the distrust with each other and the department. And in this episode, you find out that Deborah has been reassigned to work in the records department while her case kind of goes into review about what happened. And Batista still can't believe that his wife sided with the department and he sided with Deborah. You find out they're not sleeping together right now. He's sleeping on the couch. LaGuerta's, got the bedroom. And in this episode, Deborah, on her first day there in records, actually pulls up the report for the girls that were found in the barrels and found out that Boyd was not the only killer based on the DNA. She brings this back to the department, has Batista present it to LaGuerta because she doesn't think LaGuerta is going to believe her or think it's a vendetta against her. And that's exactly what happens. Batista presents it. LaGuerta says, "I'm not going to open this because this is just Deborah trying to get back at me." Well, Deborah storms in there and says, "This is not about you. This is about those girls who were killed, and there are more people out there. And if we're not going after them, what are we doing here?" And that's when LaGuerta puts it all out on the table and basically tells Deborah, not out of spite, but to show her that there's still some trust there, that Quinn's been looking into Dexter and that maybe she needs to go talk to Quinn. And so she said, I did a lot of this to protect your brother. She goes to talk to Quinn, and Quinn admits, yes, at the beginning, that's what happened, but I truly love you. And so everything's on the outs. Batista then goes back and talks to LaGuerta, and he finds out that the case was reopened. And she says, "I hope this means now we can sleep in the same bed together." And he's like, "We still have a long way to go." So those were kind of the smaller storylines in this episode, believe it or not. This was a very well-written episode, very engaging. But at the beginning of this episode, somebody's trying to break into Dexter's house. And Lumen is there and actually calls Dexter and says someone's trying to break in. So he says, "Go in the bathroom." She goes in there and leaves the phone on, and come to find out it's Astor, his stepdaughter, and a friend of hers. And they went there. Throughout this episode, you've got Deborah shows up at the house too later, and they all think that Dexter is sleeping with Lumen, but he just says she's a tenant. That's all he says. Throughout the episode, you find out at one point that the girls go missing. Lumen calls him at work and says, "Hey, the girls disappeared. There was a car driving down the street. The neighbor got a partial plate. The girls are gone, but their phones are here." Well, he sends the police department in there, and they find out that he's been having sessions with Jordan Chase. And they think that maybe the girls were taken because of Jordan Chase and his being there. And so they do kind of a little hunt for the girls. Well, the girls get actually picked up for shoplifting down at like this mall area on the pier. And Dexter goes in, and come to find out, the girl that's with Astor has a stepfather, and he's upset because the police kind of pulled him, and he's like, look, the reason I was there, that's where they got the partial plate from, was I was looking for my daughter. And I think that's what he said, my daughter. And he goes, I went to go get gas and come back, and then I was arrested by the cops. Well, you find out later in this episode that girl that's with Astor has been beat to crap by this guy, and has repeatedly been beat to crap by this guy. And so Dexter decides to take things into his own hand, corners the guy, and beats the holy living shit out of this guy, and says, you're going to call your wife tomorrow, and wife or girlfriend, and say that you hate her fat, but you're getting out of there. And when I return her to the house tomorrow, you better not be there. So he does. He ends up leaving. He's out of the picture. Dexter's able to bring the girl home, and he has a very big bonding moment there with Astor, and tells Astor that he loves her. And his dad was even shocked that he did this. His dark passenger tells him, I'm really impressed with you. You did something that was completely unlike you. You did this for someone else, showing that Dexter is becoming much more human. He's not as robotic or just as evil killer, that he actually has feelings. And he does confide in Astor later that he does love Astor. And that's when Astor says, do you want to come in and see Cody? So the very last scene is him going in with Astor and Cody into the house, along with Harrison, so he can spend some time with the whole family. So we find out that Dexter, is definitely wanting to be that family man and becoming more than just who he thought he was. And it was a big growth episode for Dexter and his whole character. So it was really well done. So we've got 3 episodes left. We're going to find out what happens with Jordan Chase now that he knows. Jordan Chase does tell Lumen that Dexter's got to come in for another meeting ASAP, and it's a matter of that time is of the essence. So, all right, that's what I have for you on this recap. We'll see you guys on the next one.